Thank you so much for watching my show. William Wallace for America. With me today in this interview is State Representative Sam Jenkins. Representative Jenkins, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Look, I tell you, the pleasure is all mine. I appreciate being here with you. I always appreciate the opportunity to share information with our public.
Well, I tell you what, I've watched how hard you work in here. I watch how much you listen. You know, when I read your legislation, I'm actually reading how much you're listening to the people in your district.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We certainly try to make sure that we are moving bills and legislation that will be responsive to the needs of our communities.
Well, speaking of your bills, I have them pulled up right here. You've got HB 92, provides relative to composition of a parish executive committee of the Democratic Party in Cato.
That's a local bill specifically for Caddo Parish. What we wanted to do was allow more participation on the parish executive committee. So we passed that legislation. It has successfully come out. And now what we're wanting to do is have extra members of the executive committee. You know, it's fundamental to the political process that people are involved, and this will give some additional people that opportunity to become involved.
And like I said at the very beginning here, it's when you listen to the people and you have these bills that represent the people that are coming to you and saying, hey, we need representation.
Absolutely.
This is one of those. You know, we got HB 348 provides relative to school safety.
You know, we've had so many incidents, not only locally here in Louisiana, but around the country, with threats and terrorism, shootings, all kind of incidents that are going on at our schools. And we want to make our schools as safe as possible. What this bill does is put together a plan so that communication could take place between the school district, law enforcement, the parents of the children that are there, any teacher or staff member that is a target of a threat. So the important thing with this bill is to make sure that is their communication, that cohesiveness between everybody who could make a decision for the safety of the students and the persons who are working at school in case there is some threat, and respond to it before maybe the threat is carried out.
You know, it's interesting. You would think that there's already a plan like that in place.
But what we're doing now is making it a matter of law, that we want these plans to be in place, we want them enforced, and we want them followed. It's all about keeping everybody involved in our schools as safe as we possibly can.
So this is just a way to create like a thread. This legislation creates a thread that kind of binds all those together, or creates a passage for that?
Absolutely. You know, we've seen some incidents where, unfortunately, something happens at a school, and maybe law enforcement and the school officials are not communicating well. Maybe the parents did not know that a threat was taking place, but they took their children to school that day. What this law would do is make sure everyone is communicating as soon as they hear any rumor of a threat, not to overreact, but to at least communicate what is going on so everyone can have a level of awareness and be able to communicate with one another and hopefully prevent a threat from being carried out.
I like the communication aspect of it.
Exactly.
I really do. You got HB 366 is a constitutional amendment which provides for the establishment of uniform leave policies by law.
Right. Now, we did not move that particular constitutional amendment because we are getting some work done on the area of paid leave for state employees. We have so many of our state employees who are at that age where they're giving birth to children, or they're adopting children, or they're taking children in for foster care. So what we're trying to do is make sure there's some uniform parental leave policy in place that's fair to all employees and give them time to bond with that new member that is coming into the family.
Like a family, is it kind of like the National Family Leave Act?
Exactly.
A national one. So this is like a statewide one.
That's right. You got it exactly. We know about the federal medical and family leave that will hold a position for someone. However, you do not get paid.
Right.
What we want to do is have a state family leave program that if you're away from your job for those reasons I just described, childbirth, adoption, placement of a foster child, that you have X number of weeks
Right.
that you could be with that child and yet get paid. So that's the object.
I like this, and for our state.
Exactly. I think it's a great thing to bring young families into our state and hopefully to retain young families here
Exactly.
in our state also.
It's one of those things, like you said, it's one of those little key pieces or puzzle pieces that makes a big difference.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people who are coming to work in state government, especially young families, they are looking for something like that as a benefit to help them stay and have that balance that they're looking for. Not only do they want to work and be employed, but they do want that time with their family also.
We always talk about how to bring jobs to Louisiana, keep people from leaving the state. We always talk about corporations, bringing in corporations. This might be a small piece of the puzzle, but it might be a very important one for a young family.
You said it correctly. That's right.
I love that. So we've got HB 396 provides for the reinstatement of the voter registration of a person who is no longer under an order of imprisonment.
Now, this has been a continuation of work by me and many voting rights advocates. What we're trying to say is if a person has been convicted of a felony offense, they're no longer physically incarcerated. They've been out of the jail for, let's say, a 5-year period of time, haven't had to return to jail, have a clean record, not having any problems, okay? We want to try to restore their right to vote. That's what the idea is. Now, past legislation allowed us to do that. What this particular bill was attempting to do was to put into place a process by which that person could have the suspension lifted on their voting rights and be reinstated. Now, unfortunately, that bill did not make it all the way through. There are some stakeholders who are involved with that process that needed more time, to weigh in on what we're trying to do. I'm hoping in future legislative sessions, we could come back and address the process. But the important thing here that we want people to know that if you had a felony conviction, you're no longer physically incarcerated, you've not had any problems for a 5-year period of time, you should visit with your registrar of voter in your parish for a reinstatement of your voting rights. So we do want people to know that is still a matter of law.
Representative Jenkins, I want to commend you on this particular bill for a reason. I did a podcast about a month ago with a woman in Georgia. She's about restoring people's rights.
Exactly.
And she really opened some eyes when I did her interview that there's a fine line between when a person has served their time, done their time,
right,
and making them have to live the rest of their lives in civil death. Or
exactly.
civil forfeiture, where
right.
where because if you can't have, and now of course she also reinstates gun rights for people for nonviolent offenders.
Right. Yes,
but she makes the point of saying, which I'm connecting what you're telling me now is, if somebody's done their time and they come back, if they're not able to vote, they're not able to get a job, they're not able to defend themselves, and they lose rights of the basic human rights that civilians have, then they're more inclined to go back to crime or doing
Absolutely
bad things.
right.
Where something like this, something like your legislation here in Louisiana, can bring them back up into our community, make them participate in our community, whether it's voting rights. People who participate in society are less likely to cause crimes.
Exactly. There are so many people who are formerly incarcerated who come out, and as you said, they paid their debt to society. They're living a model life. They're going to church.
Yeah.
They're married. They're raising children. They have a job. They have a lot of things that are going for them, but do not have the right to go in and vote. So what we're trying to do with this process here, or what we have done with this process here, is restore the right based upon the conditions that we talked about. No longer physically incarcerated, have not had any problems for a 5-year period of time. You can have that right to vote reinstated. What we're working on now is the process by which you do it. But we do want people to know that right is there. You simply need to go into your registrar of voter, ask that registrar what process do you need to go through to get back on the voting roll in the parish where you're qualified.
And so
vote.
Right now, where does this bill stand right now?
That bill did not come out of committee because there were some litigation that's going on with this particular aspect of the bill between the Secretary of State's office and some of the advocacy
So we
groups.
won't see. Oh, so the advocacy groups are
Right.
against it?
No, some of the advocacy groups that were for it
Okay.
are in litigation with the Secretary of State's office.
So we're not going to see it this session.
But I'm hoping we can
But-
see it in future sessions.
Okay.
Now, the outcome of that litigation could have a lot to do with what this would look like.
Okay.
My hope was that this bill could have resolved or settled that litigation.
you.
But I could not seem to bring the two sides
Yeah.
together. So we'll just have to try
Well,
to wait.
I'm glad it's on the radar. Then we'll have to keep that out there.
Absolutely.
We got another one of those voters. 538 provides relative to early voting locations.
Okay. Now, what we were trying to do with that is there are many parishes that have large populations but only have like one early voting site. okay? And we don't want people to mix this up with where you go on election day. That's your polling station that you go to in person on election day. But early voting sites are very, very limited in many of these parishes. And what we were attempting to do with this litigation here was to put into place some kind of a plan based on population in these areas, or the distance that a person may needed to travel to get to that early voting site, to add additional early voting sites. However, in this particular case, once again, the Secretary of State's office came to the table. They wanted to look at this a little bit more in-house, so to speak.
Right.
And so that was an agreement to the effect that this legislation would not move forward, give them an opportunity to see if they could put together some kind of protocol or plan that would address it. But I am hoping that as we move forward, we could get something in law, which is what this bill was going to do, to make it permissive, not necessarily a mandate, to put in additional voting sites according to a plan based upon population and based upon the distance that a person would have to travel.
Making voting more accessible to more people.
Exactly.
Right. We got 610 is increases the tax-exempt amount of annual retirement income.
Exactly. So what this bill did is that those persons, retirees, who are receiving their income presently could only exempt the first $6,000 of their income from state income taxes. This bill increases that exemption to $10,000.
Okay.
This will allow our retirees to keep more of their income, and we know they'll spend it and put it back into the economy and maybe help their local economies. But that $6,000 exemption was put in place back in 1981.
And
so you can imagine with inflation, the cost of living, when we looked at the data and statistics on it, it showed that $6,000 in 1981 is almost like $18,000 in 2023.
And you're only asking for 10.
Right. So we just said,
so
let's lift it to at least 10.
You got the happy medium to help some people out.
Least, absolutely.
642 provides relative to sales tax and use taxation of certain digital products and services.
Right. Now, once again, what this bill was going to do was to try to apply our sales and use tax rates that are already in place on digital products. Because what's happening now, a lot of people are not just necessarily walking into the mom and pop box stores and buying. They're going online and they're
buying
downloading
online. That's
services,
right.
Okay. Well, if you go into the mom and pop brick and mortar store, you're paying the sales tax there at the cash register. But if you're getting it on these handheld devices, you're not paying any sales taxes.
Right, exactly.
Two things here. One,
state losing money.
State is losing money. And two, we need a level playing field between the online shopping that's going on and the brick and mortar stores that are having to add taxes when you come in and buy something from them. So that's what this bill is doing.
This is just even the play. I like that. That's a good one.
Absolutely.
So we've got HCR 38 commends Louisiana State University Health Shreveport medical student Holly LaCour for her hard work to increase students' exposure to science. I read that all because I wanted to give her recognition in this video too.
Absolutely.
Since you're doing it, but I want you to explain it.
Well, she's just an outstanding student there at the medical school that's involved in a lot of research, and we was just pleased to see the work that she had been doing, and we wanted to recognize her and encourage her to continue with her studies, with her research, and with the work that she's doing. She's held in very high esteem by many of her students and the faculty there, and so they reached out and said, look, can we do something down in Baton Rouge to recognize and encourage her? So I was happy to be a part of that.
I'm glad. Like I said, it's when people listen to their constituents in such a way that they get commended like that. That's a good one. HR 104 requests the implementation of paid parental leave for all state employees.
Right, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. The earlier bill that we talked about and this bill, they were really companion bills.
Gotcha.
So
this
both,
is the teeth for the other one.
Exactly. So basically what we're trying to do and what we believe is happening now as a result of this legislation is state civil service is going to come in and cover as many of the state employees as possible with parental leave, and we believe the governor's office will also get involved by way of an executive order and maybe help as many of these state employees as possible. Ultimately, we are hoping that Louisiana will adopt a private paid family medical leave, but I do think asking the state to take the lead okay, and be that example was an important first step. So I believe that we have accomplished that for this year.
Oh, that's a good one. HR 111 recognizes May 4th, 2023 as Phi Beta Sigma Day at the state capitol.
Now that one's a little personal because that's my fraternity. But all of the fraternities and sororities have their day that they'll come down, and we recognize them. And I was so happy to see my fraternity to come down, and our sister organization Zeta Phi Beta to come down, and for us to have our day and bring recognition. These fraternities and sororities do a lot of great work. You take like Phi Beta Sigma, we work with the American Cancer Society, March of Dimes, a whole lot of good causes. And so it's good to bring them down and just let them know they appreciate it.
I like to keep things positive and upbeat. Any other comments on what's going on in the spending cap or anything like that? Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think that things are going to come out very, very well for our state. We are flush with money. It's just a matter of being fiscally responsible and making sure that we're taking care of things like higher education, early childhood education, health, and education overall. I think all of those are going to do very, very well in this process. I do think our infrastructure needs are going to be addressed very, very well as a result of this process also. So it's just good to have the additional monies to go out there and look at all of these things that in the past we were not able to address, and now this legislature and this governor, for that fact, have an opportunity to address those needs.
So being fiscally responsible is important in this one.
Right, no doubt about it. Yeah, we don't want to waste anything.
I've been seeing a lot of debating going down on the floor today. Usually I've seen them debate chicken sandwiches down there before. There's a lot of debating going on today. Were they debating the chicken sandwich again?
No, it was either a debate between the Mexican food or the fried chicken that we had downstairs.
Oh, that's what it is.
Of course, folks, we are just kidding right now. Okay?
Well, we are kidding around, but I have been asking this question lately. So if Louisiana wanted to debate what the state sandwich would be, what would you debate to be the sandwich? What would you want the state sandwich to be?
Man, that's a tough one because I'm a little bit biased with the hamburger, but
Oh, that's a unique one. I've heard oyster, I've heard shrimp. You're saying the hamburger.
Look, I'm in the beef industry. We okay.
But and I have to commend you that your legislative picture looks very current.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Would you support legislation that would mandate that the legislators have to keep regular updated pictures on the legislative site so we know exactly what they look like this year and not 12 years ago?
No. Keep a nice young picture out there, but on your way out in your last term, maybe we could talk about it then.
Oh, that's a good one there, when you update it when you get out there.
Exactly.
Representative Jenkins, is there anything else you want to say before we close out?
No, just thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for what you're doing and bringing information from the Capitol. We know everybody cannot come down here and know and participate what's going on, and guys like you who take the time to get this information to talk to us, help us to get it out to our constituents and throughout the state. That's very, very helpful.
Let them know that y'all aren't up here just debating chicken sandwiches. That y'all are debating real things for the people back at home.
Absolutely, that affects their homes. That's right.
Thank you so much, Representative Jenkins. I really appreciate it. Everybody else, keep in mind we got some more interviews coming up, and share this one, please. And thank you so much for watching.